Hey, welcome to Leadership Lifter. I'm your host, Jason Hanish, and I'm here with my buddy, my worship pastor, Brennan Lamar. Man, so glad you're here with me, Brennan.
I'm so glad to be here, man. It's been amazing to walk together for over 9 years and see God do an incredible thing here at Discovery. I'm excited to elevate the leadership culture here at Discovery and abroad and wherever you're hearing this from.
Yep. And that's the goal here with our Leadership Lifter. We want to lift the lid of leaders, and hopefully every week you can look forward to both inspiring, encouraging, but practical content that you would be able to apply to your ministry, your teams, your organization, and your leadership for you to lift the lid of your leadership. It's episode 1, and today we decided to launch with something that's been like on our heart for the last several months. And it actually comes from a time of prayer. During a time of prayer and fasting, I felt the Lord speak to me in this season of my life, my leadership, and the season of Discovery, where we've grown so much and so fast, but we're at a stage here 9 years in now where there's no more walls to knock down. And we've knocked down like wall after wall, lease more space, expand. It's been 9 years of expansion. And right now we're at a place where we are forced to look at creative ways to expand. But it was in that space of just prayer and fasting and asking God for direction that he spoke a word to me. He said, Jason, you focus on making it better, and I'll make it bigger. And I knew that was God speaking to me. I also know that the Lord speaks to me in a lot of, ways. He speaks to me through books and resources. I know the Lord was speaking to me, but it reminded me of Truett Cathy.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. And if you guys don't know the story of like where this comes from, it was like in the year 2000, I believe, where Truett Cathy is in a board meeting. And it's at a stage of their business where they were getting some competition from Boston Market. And Boston Market just released this huge endeavor like to reach $1 billion in sales by the year 2000, their 10-year vision. And so they're stressing. He's in this board meeting. He's got all of his board members, and they're like figuring out how to grow bigger. How do we grow bigger and edge out Boston Market, who was their only competitor at the time. At that time, they're in the same market. And they're going on for some time, hours, on just trying to think how they get bigger, and beat out Boston Market. Until the story goes that Truett Cathy just starts slamming on his desk, his fist on the desk, and he says, I've been sitting here listening to you guys about trying to grow bigger. And then he said something that was like a part of his now, the culture of Chick-fil-A. He said, if we focus on getting better, then our customers will demand that we get bigger.
That's so good.
And it's shifted the whole culture of their conversation and their business model moving forward. So they focused on their systems, their processes, their team, their customer service, and just improving and making it better. And what the result was, in like the year 2000, Boston Market filed for bankruptcy, and Chick-fil-A broke $1 billion. And so just by not focusing on growth and bigger, but focusing on better. But that was a word for me, man. And it's become now a value that I am instilling into our team and in our staff. Make it better.
Which is so interesting because as a church, when you begin to prioritize reaching the lost, the goal seems to evidently be grow bigger. So it's a shift in goal almost to saying, hey, our goal isn't bigger.
Right.
Our goal is better. But the end of that is bigger.
Yeah, the outcome, and I think we can get focused on outcome-based goals rather than thinking internally. And it's the same thing with like faith. Is it works or is it faith? Is it which one do I? Of course, we want to have works. We want to have good works. We want to serve. Want to read our Bible. Want to pray. But those should be outcomes of the inward faith and transformation. When you get it flipped, man, when you start focusing on the outcome of whether that's your personal growth, leadership growth, or growing the organization or growing my team, where that becomes your outcome becomes your motivation, then it's going to be an unhealthy fruit that you're going to produce. So I think this shift and maybe there was a little bit of unhealth in part of my heart that God is trying to reveal, like, stop it, son. Stop trying to, I've always been driven. I've always wanted to, and I feel like my heart is to reach the lost and always that, but we've just never been in this stage of like, there's no more walls knocked down. So every day we have to show up and believe that it can be better. Like every day, we can't get to this place where we've just arrived, where it looks fine, everything is okay. There is always room for improvement. But over time, I think we stop driving for improvement in the journey, and it could be really easy at our stage right now. I was at this summit here recently, and I got introduced as a mega church pastor, and I was like, whoa.
You're like, me?
No. I was like, dude, I'm here to learn. Wait a second. Stop pointing people to my direction. I'm here to steal from everybody else. Are you kidding me? So over time, I think we stop driving for improvement and we settle, which is why success, I found that success is the greatest enemy of future success.
Yeah.
It's not failure. It's not challenges. Yeah. It's not finances. No, none of that's the greatest enemy of future success is current success. Because there's nothing like success to make you go, well, we did good. Well done.
It's time for a break.
It's time for a break now. And we can get really comfortable in that place. And that's almost contrasting with culture a little bit, right? Where culture is propping up this idea of a comfortable, that's what your goal is, I guess, is to be comfortable.
I think so. And, you see that on social media right now where it's, how to get passive income and get enough passive income so that you can sit on a boat in Miami and just cruise. But the reality is that culture is telling us that that's the goal. The end goal is to be comfortable. The end goal is to stop. The end goal is to rest, slow down. But the most successful people I know are people that actually drive and drive and drive. And you tell them it's time to slow down and stop, and they don't stop. They're like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because culture is telling us that it's lazy's the outcome.
Man.
But the actual successful people, they have so much drive, they don't know how to stop.
Yeah, and that's the wrong goal, right? To get to this place where I don't have to drive anymore, I don't have to work, or I don't have to grow, or I don't have to grow anymore. You don't grow. Here's the truth. You don't grow in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You grow in the challenge zone. And you cannot choose comfort over calling. Our calling that God has on our life is not comfortable. Yep. And we should never be in our comfort zone for too long. In fact, the mission that Jesus has given us does not change, and it's not comfortable. He said, go into the nations and make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I think we try to shrink the mission. It's like, okay, no, we've arrived and I'm good now. No, you're not good. Yeah. The mission, you can't change the mission. You can't change the call. That call that God has on us is big. It's bigger than us, and there's always room to grow. So we gotta believe that. And it has to be instilled. We can make it better. There's always room. And here at Discovery, nothing stays the same for long.
Never.
There's we're change oriented. I really believe good is not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not. It's never just good enough. We're not going to rest on those laurels. So every staff member is responsible to make it better. Every leader is responsible to make it better, make their team better, make the process better, make your role better in every area. We're going to make it better.
I think one of the ways that we do that really well is by having a culture of feedback. In every meeting, in every huddle, there's hots and nots where we're asking the honest question of, man, what was great? What should we celebrate? Which is so important to celebrate and identify where we're doing well, but then to also stop and create a culture of feedback by inviting people to speak into where the miss was. Yeah. And instead of keeping that in a closed door saying, hey, we all saw it, didn't you see it? And it's also, we're teaching people how to see those things as well.
Yep. I want to give you today I want to give you 4 things that a leader needs to cultivate. So there's 4 things within your culture. You have to cultivate 4 of these values, or 4 things if you want to have this culture of making it better. Okay. There's 4 things in order to have this culture that we're instilling, that we're going to encourage you to instill as well. The first one is clarity. A leader is responsible for communicating clearly, making the goal clear, the win clear. Clarity is so important as a leader. To be unclear is to be unkind. So when we talk about clarity, you have to answer the question what's the win? So in this, if you're going to make it better, it has to be clear what the win is. How do I know that we've won? How do I know that we've scored? How do you know when you got it right? Yeah. And so to help us kind of do this, to bring clarity so that we can have a culture of making it better. And it was I think it was about 4 years ago that we had every department clarify their why and their when.
Yep.
And so, and the reason, like we saw this, something was we didn't communicate the win for our team years ago. Years ago, it was our first impressions, and it's not their fault. It's my fault for not clarifying the win. But years ago, I was sitting in on one of the huddles in first impressions, and the leader communicated to his team, and he said, "Hey guys," I was part of the huddle. He said, "Hey guys, this is just remember the reason why we're here and serving today is just to help our pastors in anything that they need, whatever they need. We are here for our pastors. That's why we're here, you guys. So let's make sure we keep that in our minds." And I was shocked, and my heart sank, and I didn't want to correct him in front of everybody. So I just I went to him afterwards and I said, "Hey, talking about the huddle was great. He told a story." I said, "But when you said," and I told him, I said, "Has that something that you've been communicating to them? And why do you?" And he's like, "No, yeah, because there's things that change and there's this that happens. And we just feel like it's our job.
Yeah.
And this is the priority that needs to be our priority." And he really believed that was the why. Yeah. Or that was the win. And that win was getting in the way of what really was the win.
Welcoming
and it was
people, creating a life-giving experience. Yeah.
And it was so we couldn't improve if we don't clarify the win. So
no one wants to be on a losing team. Who wants to lose? That's why I'm not a Dodger fan. I'm just kidding.
So the why of first impressions. So we kind of got our team together, and our first impressions pastor and their team, and they came up with this win. The win was when a guest is positively, not overbearingly engaged with friendliness and service. That's their win. Mm-hmm. So we know we're winning when we do that. Now, you can imagine that if that's the win, they know what the target is. If pleasing and doing whatever the pastors need was the win, you're actually going to be overlooking the people that you were there to serve and what the real win was. Yeah. So you can see with that small shift, and I believe even for first or with worship, you guys had you guys went through this as well.
Similar story. Someone in a huddle, someone who had leadership influence, was trying to get behind the value of practicing and preparing, and made a comment that shook me, and I'll never forget it. They said, "We're not here to worship." This was right before we were going on stage to worship.
Oh boy.
"We're not here to worship. We should have worshiped at home. We're here to play an excellent set so they can worship." Oh. And it hurt me so bad. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But it also spoke to the heart of the person, but that was my team. Yeah. And so it became so apparent we needed a clear win. And so from that day on, it was our win is not for people to encounter the presence of God. Our win is when we encounter the presence of God in a way that produces encounter, that fosters encounter. Because when you're in the room and you're watching someone have a moment with God, it breaks you. It opens you up. And so we made it really clear. We win when we encounter the presence of God.
So you can see how if we want to make it better, there needs to be clarity on what the actual win is. Because for, say, that team member to make it better, if he was just going to make it better, he's going to make something better that he should not be making better. And so in order to actually have this culture where we are improving and growing, you have to have clarity. And I encourage you, and we actually have them all. We'll probably put them maybe in the show notes or something like that. All of our why and all of our win of every department. But if you want to make it better and have this culture, you got to have clarity. Number 2 is safety. There has to be a level of safety. In order to have clarity and safety, you have to, here's why I think this is a challenge for some leaders. You have to have meetings in order to get clarity and safety. And I know that leaders don't like meetings, but you have to have a time where, like you said, after every service, you have hots and knots. Mm-hmm. There is a culture that is created where we are going to talk about what went well and give people some shout outs and appreciate and celebrate. But we're also going to talk about what didn't go so well, what was not hot, and give some feedback. And that had to, you had to bring some people together and have a meeting and have a huddle in order for that to happen. But in order for that to happen, there has to be safety for them to actually give feedback.
You're right. There has to be safety. And I think that if maybe you're here listening and you would say, I do not have that culture. And that happens sometimes. You try this and you go, hey, what went well? And everyone's talking, okay, what can we improve on? What was a not? And the room is silent. And that's because you don't have a culture of feedback. And one thing that we've done is when there are new teams or new leaders, I actually go around the room and I go to some key people and I say, hey, after this service, We're going to celebrate what went really well, but we're also going to open it up for what didn't go well. Can you help me by saying something and being bold? And I'll even go as far to say, would you give me some feedback in front of everyone? Because I'm then getting an opportunity to model receiving the feedback, creating safety.
Yep.
If someone gave me feedback and my instant response was, don't ever do that again, or I didn't do that, I wasn't wrong, they're never going to say anything again.
Yeah. And if there isn't safety in that room, it's a leadership. The leader needs to, like you said, create that environment, invite people in to the safety of feedback, and we need to model it. So we need to be vulnerable. Whether we're, if someone gives you feedback in a huddle or in front of your team, we cannot get defensive. You have to see that differently, that what is happening is that person is giving you a great opportunity. They're teeing you up to create culture. Even if it's not a good feedback.
Even if they're wrong.
It's how I respond to this is going to set the culture of my team. So they actually have done me a favor right now, because I'm going to respond in such a way that is vulnerable, that is honest and sincere and appreciative of that, so that everybody knows, no matter what, even if you're so off like this dude, that there is no way that you're not going to get embarrassed. You're not going to get shamed. You're not going to get ridiculed. No matter what you are seeing, there is safety here for you to bring that up. And I'm not going to bash you just because I feel like you were wrong. In fact, that's what creates safety, is when it's not agreed upon, that I still respect and value the person that gave it. So you have to create that safety.
If there isn't safety, no one will have a desire to make it better.
Yeah.
I'll say, well, I can't say anything. I can't lean in. Right. Why should I even look? Why should I try?
Yeah, don't stonewall it. Don't be defensive. Create those moments where, don't always be communicating. If you want to create safety and you're the leader, don't always be the one talking. I like to lead with questions when I'm in the meeting. And so even sometimes when I have the idea and I have the answer, I think I have the answer of what I want to do, I'll still go into the meeting or to that huddle and I'll pose the question. Yeah. I could come in, and this is what a mistake a lot of leaders make, and they ruin the safety in their team, is they come in and they share their idea immediately. That just squelches the creativity and the innovation that was in the room. And while it's not like disarming to their safety, you're not creating an environment, though, where feedback is warranted.
No buy-in.
So there's no buy-in. So you're just coming in there. And when leaders do that, I think they're afraid, they're insecure. They're afraid, like, if I actually open it up to some dialogue and get feedback, maybe something I'm attached to is going to change. Yeah. Or maybe they'll see something inside of me, and you can't leave with that insecurity. You have to have safety. This culture.
If you feel you're walking alone, surrounded by a team of people, it's possible you're lacking safety because you're lacking buy-in. So you're wondering, why am I the only one? What would you say to someone, though, who would admit, I don't think I have that culture?
Go first. So I would say go first in vulnerability and in sharing about yourself and where you could grow and how you could develop. You have to do some introspection. So if you want to change the culture, you always have to go first.
That's good.
It's not like go first and me pointing feedback into other people. Go first and be vulnerable in the areas. And it may be not even the area of the team that you're on. Maybe it's vulnerability in an area of your life and in your character or in your faith. Maybe it's in an area of your habits or something like that you're just going to open people. Yeah. You're going to open up and be honest about an area of growth. And those things are so important. In fact, not just about the team stuff, but just about life. When you open up and you're vulnerable like that, it creates safety on the team. I will say, though, challenge the process in the meeting, but work the process out of the meeting. So there is time for us to feedback and hots and knots and to talk about that. When we're together and we're in the huddle in the meeting, that's the time to challenge the process. Outside of the meeting, when we're executing what we said we're going to do, that's not time to challenge it. That's time to work that process, okay? Yeah. So we don't challenge processes in front of people out in the open and while we're executing. Yeah. We do that post-event, post-service, when we're in that moment. Yeah. After that, though, we're aligned and we're going to work this together. So in order to make it better, you got to have clarity, safety. Here's the third one, ownership.
Yep.
Ownership. You got to create an ownership mentality. Whereas and every leader wants this. We all want this because a volunteer says, I'll do what I can when I can. But an owner says, I'll do whatever needs to be done whenever it needs to be done. There's this shared ownership or a culture of collaboration. And it can be hard for leaders actually to instill this because they want to hold on to too much.
Oh yeah. I think that leadership And a lot of leaders struggle to transfer ownership. And I know that's something that I've struggled with. I can invite people in, I can get people surrounding me, but to hand off, that handoff, and sometimes we fail to inspire or pass on ownership. So we say ready, break, and we run away, but the leader's the only one really owning it.
Yeah. And you can't create a culture of ownership if you're owning everything. So you have to give stuff away. Yeah. You have to give responsibility and authority. Not just responsibility, like, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. This is what your role is. But you have to give a level of authority with the responsibility that you're giving for them to actually own. Because if they're going to make it better, if you want people to truly make it better, then they have to know that this is mine. And I try to instill, like, even in our membership, when we're people joining the family of Discovery, I try to instill an ownership mentality by letting them know, like you're not joining a club, you're joining a family. Yeah. And often I'll tell them, like, hey, these are your chairs, and this is your drum set, and these are your donuts. That's why I give them away free and we don't charge, because they're your donuts. Okay. It's yours, your coffee. So we were trying to instill that you don't just kind of attend here. You don't just serve here. No, this is yours. And so you have to, in order to have this culture, there has to be a level of ownership. For people to take ownership of the process, though, they got to know the purpose. The purpose of which we're serving. You got to know the why. They got to know the when. So clarity, safety, ownership, and to make it better, you got to have a growth mindset. A growth mindset is one that, like, is never settled. You never arrive. A growth mindset is a culture where you're always growing, you're always reading, you're always stretching, you're always looking to someone that's ahead of you and getting advice, getting input. Like I said, when I went to that summit, I'm like, I'm going there because I want to pick someone's brain. I'm going to find somebody here that's doing something better than me, and I'm going to learn it. Okay. And I'm going to grab that thing. That's a growth mindset that we have to instill not only in ourselves as model, but to instill in our teams if we want them to make it better, truly.
Yep. It's easier when everyone has that, or when there are people in the organization who want to grow. Yeah. It just inspires people to go, I need to grow. Yeah. We have this famous saying, and I'll never forget. We were probably a year and a half into church. We were growing, but we were a lot smaller than we are now. We didn't even have an office. We were in someone else's office. Remember, it was like the psychology office next door. And I'm sitting on this little couch, like all perched back. And you looked at me and the only other staff member that we had at the church, and you said, if you don't grow, you'll have to go, because the church will grow larger than you. And I'll never forget that. And that motivated me to go, I don't want to be irrelevant or unable to add value. I laugh now because the other guy's gone. But I know, but it's true. It's like go or grow. We've even almost adopted that. Like, hey man, we need to either grow or go, because here we're going to make it better.
We're going to make it better, man. But the challenging thing with this is that all growth is change. And so you have to be, in order to have to be growth oriented, you have to be change oriented. You have to be willing to change.
Most people fear change.
They do. And so, but the challenge here is, I think as a leader, if you can get people bought into growing, again, change will be the outcome. It's the idea of it's better before bigger, right? So if I can get them bought into growing, then the outcome is change. But if you're trying to get people bought into changing, growth isn't going to be the outcome. Grumbling and complaining is the outcome. So you got to make sure that it's this better before bigger. It's I'm going to focus on growing people as a leader. If you just focus on growing, what are you reading? How are you instilling? Are there personal development plans? What are the goals? How are they stretching? How is their team growing? It's not going to be the same size right now. We're going to actually raise up more leaders. How many more team members? How many more leaders? Like, you have to create a growth culture. And if you do, change is the outcome. But if you're trying to just change systems and processes, say we need to change this thing and we need to get better, and let's change the way we do leadership here. Let's change it. You're going the wrong direction, because you're just going to be pushing that uphill, man, and you're going to get grumbling and complaining. So put growth first, and change is the outcome.
No one likes change that sneaks up on them. No one likes to walk into a room and everything changed. That creates a lack of safety. But you're right, when we focus on growth, change doesn't find me, I find change.
That's right.
I'm the one going, that's the change we need to do. So we're more warmed up to the idea of making the change. But when change finds me unexpected, usually my natural inclination is, and what I fight against is doing this. I try to be open to it, but that's why I think it's so important to focus on growth, because then they see the change and they move towards the change when most people in our culture move away from change?
It's the outcome. It's the outcome. So here at Discovery, and I'd encourage every leader that's watching, we're going to make it better, and God is going to make it bigger. So in every area of your life, of your leadership, of your ministry, of your team, how can you make it better? Showing up every day and every week thinking, well, I haven't arrived. How can we get better? How can we grow? How can my team grow? How can this process grow? How can this system grow? How can we get better? And if we can fix our mindset to this, I'm telling you, God is going to make your team bigger. He's going to make your leadership capacity bigger, and he's going to make his church bigger.